Imagine you're gonna go out and see some of the beautiful Christmas lights in your city. You get some of your friends, some of your families, maybe your wife or your husband, and you wanna just go ahead on the weekend or on a night and just see how beautiful the decorations are. This is something that many people do across the world and not just in America. But when you get there, all of a sudden you hear,
New here at 4 o'clock, we're learning some new information about the shooting that disrupted holiday celebrations downtown. 14-year-old Armani Floyd was killed near Dearborn and Adams.
A 14-year-old young man by the name of Armani Floyd was killed. He was caught in a crossfire. And what happened was there were two different shootings that happened 30 minutes apart at this particular place. Now, of course, once this happened on November 21st there in Chicago, Illinois, we got an opportunity to hear from the mayor.
Incidents like last night set us back as a city, and it evokes fear. It's something that, of course, that I am absolutely frustrated and, quite frankly, I'm angry about how this incident has caused the type of disruption and fear. Because of the reckless behavior of a few individuals, we have families devastated, and our downtown residents are hesitant to leave their own homes.
Mayor Brandon Johnson expressed his frustrations, but this was not good enough for some of the reporters in Chicago who have felt that his liberal woke policies are too lenient on crime. And so one reporter came out and asked a very tough question.
That you think that a Christmas market across the street from City Hall is more a threat to public safety than violent black teenagers running down State Street shooting people at a Christmas tree lighting shows your priorities. What do you say to those people, citizens, black, brown, business leaders? What do you say to those people?
Got it.
Damn!
The question is very simple. Harsh, stern, but simple. But what would the response be from the mayor?
That if they get a phone call from you or they get an interaction with you, they should avoid you. I'm not going to entertain, because the whole premise of everything that you bring up is not only disgusting and racist, it does no facts to it. In fact, so check this out. I actually hired 36,000 people work for the city of Chicago right now. So I do know what it's like to run a major operation. I have the biggest corporation right now in the city of Chicago right now.
Boy, you don't sit your stupid ass down. Who the you think you is?
So instead of addressing the question, he puts the blame on the actual reporter, and he's trying to avoid the argument. What the reporter is saying is that there are some young black men that were out shooting that night, and I believe it was confirmed, but the mayor doesn't want to address that. The mayor then says, you are making a racist statement. And not only that, he runs the biggest corporation in Chicago.
What?
Which has absolutely nothing to do with what the person is talking about. Obviously, you are the mayor, and yes, you are control of the city's infrastructure, but that has nothing to do with what the guy is talking about, which in my honest opinion shows that the mayor has a low cognitive ability and he's incompetent. But it gets worse.
Close with this. There is not a person in this city who spends more time working to ensure that we're protecting working people. There's not a person that spends more time thinking about it. In fact, our budget reflects that. My values reflect that. You would do yourself good service by actually showing up in this room with some level of integrity as well as some honesty. You don't operate in any of that. So thank you.
He then defends himself saying, there is not a person who spends more time thinking about the safety of Chicago, and that the person asking the question is lacking integrity and honesty, which is interesting because the person asking the question is not lacking integrity or being dishonest. He's asking a tough question that is straight to the point, but the mayor is using this to push more of the progressive propaganda. And so anytime you ask a tough question to him, you, the person asking the question, is actually the person, you are the person who started the fiasco in the first place.
Damn!
Another issue that Mayor Brandon Johnson has is this whole idea of incarceration. Now, this is a big issue that really grinds a lot of people's gears in Chicago when it comes to Brandon Johnson, because a lot of people would love to see all of these criminals just get locked up in Cook County Jail. But again, what do we hear from the mayor?
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, and we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
Again, we hear another repeated pattern, which is calling everything racist, locking people up racist. And a lot of people disagree with his positioning that, you know what, locking people up doesn't solve the issue. And to be honest, he actually is correct.
He's right, you know.
In theory, incarceration can reduce crime in the short term by physically removing offenders, but it does not reduce crime or violence in the long term. We know that because we have the largest prison population in the world, and he's correct. It does not reduce crime. However, what we also see is that criminality and going to jail increases crime. There's a word for that. I believe it's called recidivism. It increases instability and violence. Why does jail increase violence and crime long term? Because in most cases, people believe that you get more exposure to hardened offenders. You have social learning of criminal behavior. When you get in jail, you have to commit crimes in certain aspects to just survive. There is gang recruitment inside that leads to connections on the outside. You get trauma, violence, and abuse in jail. You may get a deeper resentment toward the system. And, you know, all of these things. And so when you get out of prison, you might want to get a good job, but it's hard to get onto your feet, which leads you back down the path of old school memory lane. And so you get recidivism because you face unemployment, you face stigma, you face lack of housing, and you know you have broken relationships. So he is technically correct when he says this. So what is the answer, Brandon Johnson? Well, let's look at what we see in any developed country in better neighborhoods. Let's say rich suburbs outside of Chicago. Let's look at countries like Luxembourg, which I've been to. Why is the crime a little bit lower there? Well, number one, you have a better economy and jobs. You know, there is focused, data-driven policing. You know, you have resources that are there, technology and surveillance. When I lived in Poland for 6 years, I mean, anybody could log in on their phone and view the entire map of the city to see anything going on, okay? So you have this investment, you have more jobs, you have more tax base, and so this stops crime. It doesn't eliminate it, but it does stop crime. So what about Chicago? Does Chicago have good jobs and a strong job base? Well, they do. But just stick with me, because there's something else that I want to bring out that you might have forgotten.
I want to start with the 1994 crime bill that was coined by Bill Clinton, which literally was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, contribution to mass incarceration. He literally employed over 100K or more police officers, which led to mass arrests, which we know ultimately leads or ends with mass incarceration. He created mandatory minimums, which we know is probably the biggest contribution to mass incarceration.
Let's go back to 1992 when Bill Clinton appeared on Arsenio Hall and he had on his shades and he was playing the saxophone, and blacks were calling him the first black president. Well, how did he win the black vote? Number one, the black community at that time asked for certain things. And this happened in both 1992 and 96. The expectations were this: one, investment in cities, job programs, education funding, infrastructure, drug rehabilitation, and community development. These are the things that black people asked from 1992 in the 1996 campaign. And in particular, the black community wanted investments in public housing. So let's say, for example, the dilapidated housing you see with Cabrini Greens. They've been asking for those dilapidated housings to come back into the black community. That never happened, although you have Democratic mayors, whether it's Lori Lightfoot or anybody else before, promising to bring those things to the black community, and they never got them. But let's go back to Bill Clinton. Drug treatment programs, community centers, economic development, violence prevention programs, all of these things Bill Clinton said that he would give. But did it happen? No. What the black community got from Joe Biden and Bill Clinton was the crime bill. Instead of getting the money into the black community, what we got was $10 billion in new prison construction. We got over policing in the black community, over 100,000 new police officers, harsher sentencing, elimination of federal Pell Grants for inmates, especially if you had drug convictions. And this is important because if you wanted to go back to school and get certain skills, if you had certain crimes on your records, you could not get the Pell Grant. So it wouldn't have mattered if you served your time or paid your debt to society, okay? We got 3-strike sentencing, more funds to states to increase incarceration. But Brandon Johnson is preaching against overcrowding the prison system when his own political party is responsible for it. Woo! Now, let's say, for example, the black community got all of those things. The beautiful thing about Black Chicago is that Chicago does have a strong job base. Out of the places you have in the United States, you have number 1, New York City, 2, LA, 3, Chicago. Those are the top economic centers in the country. Chicago is known for their finance, transportations, food manufacturing, professional services, okay? Also, great schools are there. Northwestern is somewhere close there, University of Chicago. Illinois Technology is there. Many schools are Chicago State's there, okay? So you have so many opportunities, but the problem that Illinois has as a state is, number 1, the jobs are leaving as soon as they are coming in. Damn. Why? Because big corporations can spend money in Illinois, but small, medium enterprises cannot. So what happens is Illinois has a high corporate tax rate, high property tax rate, even in places like Dayton, Illinois. I know what you guys heard about that. It's one of the highest property taxes in America, high worker compensation fees, and expensive commercial insurance. So what happens is that these jobs end up going to, you guessed it, Texas, Florida, Indiana, Tennessee, which creates job churn. So if Brandon Johnson really wanted to fight for a lack of incarceration, well, then what he would need to do is go directly to Governor Pritzker and say one thing: lower corporate taxes for businesses. Woo! But no, he doesn't do that. Damn. Also, because of the high taxes, Illinois is one of the states that people are leaving the most. And then also, because you don't get that investment into Black Chicago with some of the skill-based training, the jobs that people need right now, they can't fit the employer skills. For example, New York City, DC, LA, they have plenty of high-skill jobs. You have plenty of demand for them. But you need certain skills, certain education levels to achieve it. Low-skill jobs, they are declining in the market, and a lot of people in Black Chicago would not qualify for high-skilled jobs. We don't have trade schools that are recruiting in the Black community in Illinois, from what I understand. And so again, these are things that the mayor could fix, but he doesn't address these things. But then he wants to call everything racist, when all of the problems that you see in Illinois, especially in Chicago, are institutional. And these institutional problems are there because of Democratic policy. On one hand, you say incarcerating people is not the answer, but I guess high corporate taxes, high property taxes, high workers' compensation fees, and expensive commercial insurance is the answer. Woo! I mean, again, the guy is incompetent. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy Oshay Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of I'm the Celebrity Junk. Appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.